You're from the UK originally, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So I guess just yeah to start from the beginning. I guess I'll give like quite a high level overview. So I grew up. I was born in London. I grew up in London till I was like 21 years old. I guess the first like key life event that happened for me was like I was adopted. So I grew up like without my real parents. So that I guess kind of shapes who I am as a person, and still to this day it makes me quite I don't know, distant in like personal relationships, and often I won't approach things with like an emotional mindset. I'm generally very like logical in my approach, and I think that that comes from the adoption. But I grew up with like great parents. Like I was given a great life, and yeah, I had like up until about 11 or 12 a pretty normal childhood. I always did pretty like I was always quite smart, but I hated school. Like I hated being told what to do. Very rebellious. Like even throughout my exams, I purposefully didn't write anything on any of my GCSEs or what we have in the UK. So like your exams, I just wrote my name and left the exams empty, which was quite a stupid thing to do. But just I was so against the school system that just didn't want to take part in it. Um, and then I don't know, I was in with like the wrong crowd for like a couple of years. I spent 2 or 3 years doing drugs pretty much like every single day, like absolutely everything except for heroin and crack cocaine. Heroin mostly because I was afraid of needles, but literally everything else. I was homeless for about 3 months as well. My parents got so tired of me that they like kicked me out. So it was quite a transition to where I am now. But I think that's actually quite like a common story with like successful people, right? If you look at their childhoods, they often come from a I don't know, they've been through like some difficult experiences, and I guess it kind of builds like resilience in the mind. And also, if you've been in some pretty dark places, like there are people who've been in far worse situations than me, but you kind of don't want to be there. Like once you've hit rock bottom, the only way to go is up. So yeah, I had like some strange experiences as a child, and then my first experiences with automation, in fact, were through was through gaming. So there was a game called like RuneScape. I don't know if anyone. I'm sure some people will be familiar with it. So I first discovered like botting on this game, and I kind of realized that I can set up like 10 accounts to basically do like money making activities and so on. And of course, it means that you get very rich very quickly. So all through the night, I would have these bots running and making me money. And that was I would have been about 15 or 16 when I first set that up. Um, from there, yeah, where did I go? My like first ever job was in so I left school at 15, by the way. I've got no qualifications, didn't go to university, did nothing like that. Ended up doing drugs for yeah, for 2 or 3 years until I was about 18, and finally got my life back in order. And then I the first ever job that I got was in recruitment, which for anyone like I really encourage it as like a career path for people who aren't sure what they want to do, because it gives you an introduction into sales, an introduction into marketing, dealing with people, management of people, and I was in like technical recruitment as well, so hiring developers, which is also how I first got into programming, because I was talking to people about how much experience do you have with JavaScript, what APIs are you working with, and at the time I had no idea what any of that stuff meant. I actually thought maybe I should spend some time to figure out what does Node.js actually do, what's it actually used for. Um, so I did pretty well there, and that was then when I first got into like LinkedIn automation, and this was before LinkedIn automation like existed. This was about 9 years ago. I remember there was one guy who built this crappy software. I can't remember the name of it now. This was before like Linktelper or any of this stuff like even existed. A couple of years before that. So I grew my network to be like the largest LinkedIn network in the UK. There was a guy who was beating me in the US, but I grew mine to about 58,000 connections. Again, this was before like the 30,000 connection limit on LinkedIn. And again, going back to my RuneScape days of automation, I figured out, well, if I set up 2, 3, 4, 5 accounts, spamming out job offers to these developers, I can make a lot more money. So that was kind of how I started off with getting into like sales and automation. Nothing very complex. It was very like simple stuff. But at the time, yeah, like I said, this was it was about 8 or 9 years ago. So this was kind of like the early days. So like LinkedIn automation was kind of just coming onto the scene.
So 3 points. First things first. For RuneScape, what did you do? You traded wood like through multiple accounts?
Bowstrings. If you remember that, so you could do. If I even remember the name of it, you could set them up to go and pick flax, as I remember in. I can't remember the name of the place, and then they would spin it into bowstrings, and you could make a couple of mil per hour by playing RuneScape. And I was automating about 10 accounts, and I would then sell the gold. You could sell RuneScape gold for like real money. So I think I was making about $500 or $600 per month, which for me was pretty good at the time. I also ended up getting quite rich on RuneScape as well, doing running like some businesses within the game that you could run gambling businesses.